أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So today inshallah we're going to discuss in the next episode of the greatest miracle after the Quran, the life story or the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And while we're doing this, we are also doing some testing on YouTube for our upcoming program, which is going to be on May 10th. So inshallah, just bear with me. So today we want to discuss the next part or the next series of events that happened, which was that after the Quraysh tried all their might and all their techniques on trying to intellectually defeat Islam, which they could not, they came to realize that they have to change their strategies. And of course, some of the strategies that they tried before was propaganda. They tried arguments. They also tried, ridicule and slander. But all of these things did not work. Now they basically said that, okay, now we have to become physical and we have to start physically trying to stop them from spreading. So there was basically the key points of this was torture and harassment and killing. And when we say harassment, it was a lot of physical harassment and even such extreme torture that some of the Sahaba actually died from being tortured in that way. Among the people who were tortured from the Muslims were the companions Bilal radiallahu anhu, who was tortured by his owner or slave master, whose name was Umayyah ibn Khalf. He dragged him in the street with a rope tied around his neck. They put him in burning sand, and they put a large, heavy stone on his chest. But Bilal radiallahu anh kept saying, Ahadun Ahad, one, one. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh eventually freed him by buying him and freeing him. Among these people were Amir bin Fuhaira, who was also a slave who was freed by Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. There was also a companion by the name of Abu Faqih or Aflah, and he was also tortured in scorching heat. They used to take off his clothes and they put a heavy stone on him and dragged him, and he was also freed by Abu Bakr. Also, Khabbab ibn al-Arat was a companion who later on in Medina, when the companions wanted to tell a new Muslim what life in Mecca was, they would tell Khabbab to uncover his back. And his back, basically, Khabbab ibn al-Arat was a blacksmith. So when he became Muslim, his slave owner used to use his own tools to torture him, the tools of blacksmith, and they used to brand him in his back, and they would lay him down on burning coals. And there was nothing to stop those burning coals except the skin melting on those coals and basically putting them out. There was also a Muslima by the name of Zinnira, and she was a Roman slave that embraced Islam. And they tortured her so much that she lost her eyesight. And the Quraysh said to her that you lost your eyesight because you have angered Lat and Uzza, and they have taken your eyes away from you. So she said, no, by Allah, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has taken my sight, and if He wishes, He will restore my eyesight. The next morning she woke up and her eyesight has been restored. The Quraysh said this is just one of those Muhammad's sorcery tricks. The sorcery tricks of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was of course not true. Another person that tortured, not the one that was being tortured, was actually Umar ibn al-Khattab himself, who was at the time not Muslim, and he was a very extreme opponent. Actually, the personality of Umar radiallahu anh was that whatever he was on it full force. And he wasn't doing a half a job on anything. So at that time, he was, partaking in this activity as well. And he had a slave girl that he used to beat until he would be exhausted. And when he would be exhausted, he would take a break and he would tell her that I'm not taking a break because I'm having mercy on you. I'm taking a break because I have become fatigued. And she said to him that it is Allah that made you tired. It is Allah that made you tired. There was also a lady by the name of Nahdiya and her daughter. They were also tortured very much, and they were bought and freed by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Now you can see this again and again, that Abu Bakr, whenever he finds out that there's a slave that is being tortured, he would go and he would buy them, and then he would free them. The father of Abu Bakr said to him, "My son, you're buying all of these weak and useless people and freeing them. Why don't you buy some strong men and free them?" Because, of course, they used to look at manpower as power. So if you freed a slave, this slave owed you a favor the rest of his life, that if you ever called on him, he would come and respond to you because you freed him. So he was telling him that, Abu Bakr, why don't you get some free, strong men and buy them and free them? Why are you buying these weak girls and old women, old men? They will not be able to do you any favor when you need it. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he basically replied what is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Layl, that he said that I'm only doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that these people will come and help me when I need it. And of course, he was referring to the hereafter, while his father, who was not a Muslim, was referring to this dunya at that time. Some of these people, they actually died from their injuries and from this torture. Some of them could not take it anymore, and they were forced to say, recant Islam. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the Muslims that if they are being forced, they are being tortured, they are under threat, then they are allowed to say what the mushrikeen want them to say, and or what anyone else wants them to say at the time, as long as Iman is firm in their heart and they say what they said, hating it, meaning they're not pleased with it. If they do that, then they are not sinful. And the Prophet ﷺ, actually, Ammar was one of those companions who did that. But then he was scared and he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him what had happened. So the Prophet ﷺ said that if they return to what they have done to you before, then you return to what you have said before, meaning you're allowed to do this. The parents of Ammar, which were Yasir and Sumayya, they actually were killed by the torture. And the Prophet ﷺ passed by them while they were being tortured. And he said, Sabrun ya ala Yasir, fa inna maw'idakum al-jannah, that patience, O the family of Yasir, your destination is Jannah. And Sumayya, the mother of Ammar, became the first martyr in Islam who was killed for being a Muslim. Among these people was also Mus'ab ibn Umair, who was a wealthy young man, but his own mother turned on him. Also Suhaib al-Rumi and Uthman ibn Affan, who was also a person which was, a well-known and a person who was well-to-do in society in terms of his status. Even his senior family members actually tortured him, but they did not have any impact on him. Initially, the Prophet ﷺ was spared from open abuse because he had prestige and he belonged to a highly respected tribe, and his opponents did not dare to lay their hands on him. And he was under the protection of Abu Talib. Now, the Makkans came to Abu Talib and they said, "Stop him or let us stop him." And Abu Talib did not confront them, he just made some mild comments to them, and he allowed the Prophet ﷺ to continue what he was doing. But then they came and they challenged Abu Talib, and they said, either stop him or we will fight you both. So Abu Talib went to the Prophet ﷺ and he said to him that, have mercy on me and yourself. Do not place a burden on me that I cannot bear. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh my uncle," he said, "Oh my uncle, I swear by Allah, if they were to place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, and ask me to abandon this mission, I would not turn from it until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes me victorious or I perish therein." Seeing the resolve of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Talib understood that that he is firm and he's not questioning anything, and he said to him, "Go and do what you were doing. Go and do what you were doing, and I will stand with you as long as I can." So then they realized, okay, Abu Talib is not really helping us out here. So now they increased their persecution so that they started to persecute the Prophet ﷺ directly himself. Um, However, because the Prophet ﷺ had noble lineage and prestige and a strong family, the only people that could actually do something to him were people who were like in status, like the Prophet ﷺ. So the people that started this were his own neighbors, and Abu Lahab, of course, his own uncle, and Umayyah bin Khalaf and Abu Jahl among them. And of course, Abu Jahl was such a person that the Prophet ﷺ said that he is the Fir'aun of my ummah. He is the Fir'aun of my ummah. They started to throw trash in front of the Prophet ﷺ. They would throw intestinal contents in front of the way of the Prophet ﷺ. A man by the name of Umayyah bin Khalf, he would taunt the Prophet ﷺ in front of the Meccans. His brother Ubay bin Khalf, he said to the Prophet ﷺ, that I feed my horse every day 3 times so that I can kill you while being on its back. And he was the person that the Prophet ﷺ said to him, no, it is I who will kill you. And this is something that happened, that when the Prophet ﷺ saw him in the battlefield of Uhud coming towards the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ took a spear from one of the companions and he shot that spear or threw that spear at Ubay as he came near. And this spear did nothing except it just slightly scratched him on his face. However, it is mentioned that Jibreel basically blew on that light wound and it became inflamed and it became infected, and he actually died from that one slight little wound at the hands of the scratch that was made by the Prophet ﷺ. Another very painful thing that they did to the Prophet ﷺ to try to hurt him was that Abu Lahab made his 2 sons, who were married to the 2 daughters of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Lahab told them to divorce the 2 daughters of the Prophet, which is really a very, very, very mean-spirited thing, but that's exactly what they were. They were mean-spirited. And the wife of Abu Lahab, Jamil, she used to scatter prickly thorns in the path of the Prophet ﷺ. One day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah Al-Lahab, Tabbat yada Abi Lahab, Abi Lahabin wa tab ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. And this was talking about Abu Lahab and his wife and how they will be in hellfire. And Jamil, the wife of Abu Lahab, when she heard this, she came very angry towards the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr while they were sitting on a wall, like a half wall. They were sitting there. And she came to Abu Bakr and she said, where is your companion? You know, if I see him, I'm going to throw the stone at him. I'm going to smash his head. How dare he say this about me? And she said, she made some poetry. She said, مُذَمَّمًا أَبَيْنَا, we disobey Muhammad and rejected his وَدِينُهُ عَصَيْنَا وَأَمْرُهُ عَصَيْنَا وَدِينُهُ أَبَيْنَا, that we reject his call and we renounce his religion and with disdain. Now, all this time, the Prophet was sitting right next to Abu Bakr, but she could not see him. And the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seized her sight, that she could not see me. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard all of the stuff that they were saying about him, but they changed his name from Muhammad to Mudhammam, the Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Bakr that, look, some poor guy named Mudhammam is getting all this abuse from them and he hasn't done anything to them. So meaning that they're not talking about me, they're talking about some guy named Mudhammam. Abu Jahl was the worst enemy of the Prophet, and several times he attempted to obstruct or attack the Prophet ﷺ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him with angels. And at times, he told the people that I'm going to go and smash the head of Muhammad with this big rock while he was in sujood. And when he got close, he dropped it and he ran away like a child. And his companions, they said, what happened? He said, didn't you see what I saw? They said, no. He said that I saw this ferocious animal that was ready to pounce on me had I taken any more step. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defended me with angels. And it is mentioned in the Quran that فَلْيَدْعُ نَادِيَ سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَ, that let him bring his nadi, which were the council, his companions, his supporters, and we will call سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَ, we will call Zabaniya. And the scholars have said that Zabaniya are angels in charge of hellfire, meaning they're experts in punishing people in the most severe ways. We will call those upon him. One day the Prophet ﷺ was making salah, and when he went in sujood, Uqba bin Mu'ayt, he placed the intestines of a camel over the Prophet ﷺ's head, and the blood was basically pouring on the Prophet ﷺ, and it was so disgusting that people don't even want to touch that. They throw that immediately out, and he picked it up and he put it on the Prophet ﷺ. Some of the poor and the weak companions, they could not step in front of these giants of Quraysh that were doing this. So they went and they called Fatima, a young girl at the time, and she was the only one who could come. And she basically, with her hand, she picked that up and she threw that away. And she was so upset and crying that they did this to her father. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made dua at this time against these people. Each and every single one of these 5 people that were there sitting in this one group, with Abu Jahl among them and Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt among them, the Prophet ﷺ made dua against them, and each and every single one of these people, they died very horrible deaths. Injuries becoming extremely painful and infected, and one of them, the stomach fluid started coming out of his nose, and they all were killed in the Battle of Badr or before that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the scholars have said that any of the opponents of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who crossed limits in opposition, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not guide them to Islam, because they basically chose the evil path and they went to the farthest extent. But they were opponents of the Prophet ﷺ who opposed him, but they did not cross limits. They did not go below the belt. Among them were Abu Sufyan. Among them were Khalid bin Walid. Among them were people like the son of Abu Jahl. Among them were people like Umar ibn al-Khattab. These were people who did oppose, and they were standing with their people. They opposed Islam, but they did what everyone else was doing. They did not come up with new and more painful ways to try to hurt the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet ﷺ, Ya ayyuha rasulu balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al fama ballaghta risalatah, wallahu ya'asimuka minan nas. Allah told the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet, you convey what has been revealed upon you, and if you don't do that, then وَإِلَّمْ تَفْعَلْ فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ, then if you don't do that, then you have not fulfilled your duty, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will defend you from the people. They will not be able to harm you. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us a tawfiq to properly understand the life of the Prophet ﷺ and to learn good lessons from that. Of course, whenever we face difficulties in life for being Muslims, we should never feel disheartened or discouraged, because our Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, they faced much worse than any of us have faced. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on those of our brothers and sisters in China, in India, and many other parts of the world where they are facing some severe forms of persecution. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them and relieve them. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala either guide their enemies or take care of them in a way that He feels befitting for them. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.